Hey, welcome to part one of our series on Bambu Studios. In this introductory tutorial, we are going to talk about all of the settings and also adding our first object and getting printing. Hey, welcome to part one of our introduction to Bambu Studios. As you can see, I am in the main dashboard of Bambu Studios. I've got an empty plate and I'm going to go through some of the settings and we're going to slice our first print. So over here on the left, this is where I'd like to start. We want to make sure we have our printer selected. If you have not connected your printer first, you are going to need to hit create printer, or when you even are prompted to jump in the first time, it will ask you to connect a printer. The next thing I look at is make sure I have the right plate. So I do have a textured PEI plate on my P1S right now. So we're going to select that. And I look at the nozzle diameter. I'm printing with a 0.4, which is your standard millimeter nozzle. And our flow is just set to standard. Okay. Over here, you'll see that I am connected to an AMS. If you're not connected to an AMS, you will just see a single option here for selecting both your type of filament. So if I click into here, you will see if I go to just the Bambu basic, matte, ABS, and there's a whole bunch of others along with generic. And in future videos, you'll be able to jump in and see how I have created my own custom for different types of filament that I'm using. So these are your filament settings. Under that, you have a few standard settings from Bambu Labs that you can choose to print with, which is basically your layer height. So my standard is a 0.2 millimeter layer height. And you'll see a lot of people that are printing at 0.16, and you just basically need to select which one of these you're most interested in, depending on which preset you select. So I've got the 0.2. If I were to go to the 0.2 millimeter strength, it's going to change all the settings you see below. A couple things to keep in mind. A lot of you, the first time you log in, you will actually see this as not advanced. This is all you'll see under your options to change. I would recommend just jumping over to advanced, starting right here. Don't waste your time looking at those basic settings. As we get further into this series, I'll dive deeper into what each of these mean. I'm going to quickly highlight some of the ones to pay attention to. So for your first print, I look at first these generic settings. 90% of the time, they're going to work for you. You just upload your model, slice it, print, you're good to go. That is why you've chosen to use a Bambu printer. That is the beauty of using a Bambu Labs printer. So basic settings, I pay attention to initial layer height. I don't need to change much in here. The only thing that I may change is this section under the seam, where I may choose nearest, align, back, or random, depending on where I want the seam of each layer to be on the object. Under the strength section, I do recommend making some changes in here. So the standard, let me actually jump this back to a more standard print. The standard is going to be set to 2. Obviously, the more walls that we add, the stronger the print is going to be. Also, you have your top shell layers set to 4. The more layers you add on your top shell, the better the print quality is going to be on your outer surfaces. And then your bottom shell is just, I feel like, helps with adhesion. I usually keep this at 4, and these are pretty much my standard settings, is this 4, 4, and 4, and I start there. Other things to pay attention to are your infill. So 15% is the standard. Unless you're trying to build something super strong, I wouldn't recommend going any more than 15%. And in future videos, I will also talk about different patterns that you're seeing here as well. Speed is a big thing. I feel like I rarely have to change off of these speeds unless I'm printing with a really temperamental filament, maybe something with like a glitter in it or something along those lines. So these speed settings, the first time I run a print, I never change them. The other option is support. We basically just need to decide, do we need support or not? If we need support on this object, meaning we have overhangs, then I am going to want to make sure that I turn this on. And the basic settings are you have tree or you have a normal, and I would leave them on auto as a beginner. Other things to pay attention to is this threshold angle. This is going to be the angle at which the slicer determines if supports need to be added. For most prints, I do remove small overhangs. It just makes the print run a little bit better. And those are the settings I mess with in here. This last one under others, these are settings that I rarely get into unless I feel like I have an object that's going to want to lift off the plate, meaning just delaminate from the actual bed as it's printing. I may add a brim, but again, if you leave it set to auto, the system should realize if your filament is, or sorry, the system's going to realize if your object is going to need or is going to be likely to pull off the plate. Other things to pay attention to is your prime tower. This comes in only if I'm using multiple color printing for this platform. Okay, let's jump over to loading in our first object. So we're going to go up and say add right here. An object that I've printed many times. Okay, so here you'll see I've got a geometric planter. This is a planter I designed and have given it out as gifts. It's an awesome planter. A couple things that I pay attention to here is once I have the object in, the first thing I do is make sure I hit this auto orient. It's going to make sure that your print is given the largest surface or the best surface to adhere to the bed on. Other things that I make sure I check are to arrange the objects. If you're adding multiple objects, this is a great tool just to arrange, and it will auto place them on the bed. For your first print, that's the biggest things I'd pay attention to. Okay, so once we have this here, we've already went through our settings. I'm going to come up here to the slice plate, and we're going to hit that button. All right, depending on your computer and how fast it is, it could take a little bit of time, could take a lot of time. Really just depends on speeds there. So for me, things that I pay attention to, I usually just look at line type most of the time. And so what this is telling me is this total print time, 3 hours and 46 minutes. Model prep time, model printing time is 3 hours and 40 minutes. And the prep time is 6 minutes here. And based on the cost of the filament, based off of this Bambu Labs, it's saying it's going to cost me $4.79. And that is ready to go. So at this point, all I need to do is hit print and select which one of my AMS slots to print from, or in this case, it might be an external as well. And then I'm going to send that off to the printer. Thanks for sticking around to the end. Make sure to like and subscribe for part 2 of this series, which these will be coming out daily for the next little while. Drop a comment down below if there's any steps that you feel like you need help with, and I'll make sure to include them in the next video.